Good morning. I wanted to talk briefly about Pandas, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep. So I just saw a young man the other day, and he was, as his mother put it, this gentle soul who was developing normally. Everything was fine, doing well in school. And then overnight, he suddenly had fairly severe OCD and tics. And he was taken to his pediatrician. The pediatrician diagnosed him with likely Pandas and treated him with antibiotics. And unfortunately, they didn't help. So the pediatrician referred him to a Pandas specialist where the diagnosis was confirmed. And the patient was treated with a second round of antibiotics and steroid. And that helped. Didn't completely resolve the problem, but it helped. Now, when you think about this, the first doctor, the pediatrician, very competent physician, understood antibiotic resistance, et cetera, and used an antibiotic. Didn't help. So do we really think it was the second antibiotic that helped, or do we think it was the prednisone that helped? You see, in Pandas, people get stuck on this idea of associated with strep. Oh, it's an infection. Let's use antibiotics. But the strep is just the trigger. So what do I mean by that? It's just the straw that broke the camel's back. So think about that metaphor for a second. So you've got this camel, and it's got this huge mountain of hay on its back. And then you're what do you call them? The camel herder. And you mindlessly pick up that last piece of straw that's still laying on the ground, and you toss it up on the camel, and boom, there goes the camel. Well, it's not enough to just take that straw off. You have to take all the straw off. Then you have to set the bones. Then you have to let them heal. And then if you're going to return to active service, you probably need to send that camel to, camel physical therapy and camel occupational therapy and whatever else to get him healed so that he can carry straw again, right? So it's just the trigger. It's just the straw that broke this camel's back. So the question is, in functional medicine, we think about antecedents, triggers, and mediators, or ATMs. I like to say we call them ATMs because that's where the money is. ATMs, antecedents. Those are predisposing factors, things that preceded the illness. So these are predisposing factors. These might be genetic issues. These might be epigenetic issues, metabolomic issues. They might be toxicities, prior injuries, traumas, blah, 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 all of it. Anything that might be something that predisposes you. And then triggers, that's just the straw that broke the camel's back. And then mediators, things that perpetuate illness, biochemical factors that perpetuate illness. So the treatment of Pandas, people emphasize associated with strep, but really we need to emphasize pediatric autoimmune. So this is an autoimmune illness. And I can see my Newfoundland moving in the background. It's not the creature from the Black Lagoon in the grayed out area. But this is an autoimmune illness. And it's autoimmune illness that causes inflammation in the brain, which results in neuropsychiatric symptoms. So in this guy's case, it seems pretty obvious, and in most cases, it seems pretty obvious that inflammation is a big driver. Inflammation is a big driver in many illnesses and all autoimmune illnesses. So it's probably that prednisone that helped initially, right? Well, prednisone isn't so great to be on long-term. So the plan is to look at those antecedents, try to find antecedents, try to find mediators. So we sent off some tests looking for a sort of a total toxic burden test, right? This toxic burden test looks at heavy metals. It looks at mycotoxins or mold toxins. It looks at persistent organic pollutants, whether they're pesticides or herbicides or volatile organic compounds or what have you, BPA, all those things. And then an organic acid profile. An organic acid profile I like to call a nutritional efficiency panel. So, deficiencies are not that common, right? Most people are aware of nutrition. They try to eat at least reasonably well. And those who don't probably are taking a multivitamin. So deficiencies are not very common, but inefficiencies are very common. And what do I mean by that? Well, you might get your blood drawn and find out that you got plenty of B12 in your body. But we also might check something called a methylmalonic acid. And what the methylmalonic acid tells us is that you're not using the B12 efficiently. And so we check those kinds of tests for vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids and antioxidants. And it also helps us look for other toxicities and dysbiosis of the gut. So there's this teeming ecology of microorganisms in our gut that are critically important for a healthy immune response. And if that is disordered, that can be a big player in autoimmunity. So we look for that as well. And so we're going to construct a plan that's going to include anti-inflammatory herbs, probably some antimicrobial herbs, but mostly those are not to treat the strep. Those are to treat what's likely present as dysbiosis or an imbalance of that healthy gut ecology. We're going to put them on some things to help with detoxification, some things to help heal the gut, normalize the barrier function of the gut, because 70% of the immune system is associated with the gut. It's called the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or GALT. And most, I should say, autoimmunity actually starts in the gut as a disruption in the barrier function of the gut, resulting in inappropriate interactions between things that are camouflaged to evade the immune system that live in our gut and the immune system. So you get, instead of sort of think of my eyeballs as my immune system and my gut wall is this, and I can kind of see through the little cracks, but I can't see very well and to look like me. And this results in autoimmunity. So that's going to be our plan for pandas in general. Look for the antecedents. We think we know the trigger. In the case of pandas, it's strep. In the case of panda, we don't know, but it's the same idea. In other words, pandas, just pediatric, autoimmune, neuropsychiatric disorder. I guess it's just panned without the associated with strep. But anyway, this is an important piece, because endlessly treating these children with antibiotics, that's the wrong thing. That's just the trigger. We need to look for the antecedents and the mediators to complete that ATM. And we do that commonly. This is how functional medicine is practiced. All right. I hope that this is helpful for understanding pandas.